Hello and welcome to Too Stupid to Live, a podcast that reviews romance novels $5 and under. I'm your host, Becky Feldman, and I am a sweltering. And not just because I had to turn off my air conditioner to record this intro. No, it's because hot as hell summer continues. If you're new to the pod, Hot as Hell with TSTL episodes are special episodes where I chat with your favorite or soon-to-be favorite romance authors and fiction authors who write stories that involve romance. And let me tell you, today's episode is an exciting one for me. Author and friend Jessie Rosen is here to discuss her newest novel, The Heirloom. And as you'll hear, I've wanted to have Jessie on this podcast for a while. Jessie was one of the first writer-performers who I encountered who talked about sex openly and vulnerably, particularly emphasizing the importance of like a judgment-free environment to do so. Doing her show was like a stepping stone in my journey to talk about my sex life in my solo show and even on this podcast. So it really means a lot that she's here today. And you are going to enjoy this conversation so much. So sit back, relax, and get yourself a tall drink of water, whatever that means to you. And all in all, just enjoy Jessie Rosen getting hot as hell with TSTL. All right. Jessie Rosen.
Hi, Becky.
Hi.
We did it.
We finally did it. Welcome to Too Stupid to Live.
A dream.
Oh, really? Oh my God. Well, it's a dream for me because as I was saying, you've been on like a bucket list of mine, as a guest to have on for ages.
So sweet. That's so sweet. I'm such a fan. You know that of everything you do, but it's just fun to be in your presence. So we'll pretend that we're in person.
Okay,
listeners, cool. We're not.
No, we're not in person. But yeah, we are. We're having tea, and it's like they're letting in my fancy studio that I can afford. And yeah.
That's right. Well, it's so good to be here, and thank you.
Oh, well, okay. I want to ask, you just got back from touring, going on your book tour for The Heirloom. So I want to see, how are you doing? How was the tour? How's it being back?
Yeah, I got back like 5 days ago, and I have to say, it's overwhelming. I mean, I'm tired in kind of a good way, kind of in like a I did it way.
Yeah.
I'm also still feel like I'm processing it. I'm sure, as you know, from being a performer in so many different capacities, it's kind of, it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, you kind of get the chance to reflect on it. It's too much in the moment, I think, to be reflecting on it. But I mean, it was a dream come true. Mm-hmm. I keep saying that one of the tricky things about working in film and television is, in my circumstances, I didn't get the chance to really talk to people about the work that I was working on. Right. I didn't get to talk to audiences directly. So to be able to be in a room and talk to people about something you created, even debate it, even if people kind of thought it was going to go a different way, mostly people are incredibly kind, but just to be able to like have ideas and put them down and then engage with the community around that is something I don't even know how much I realized I was longing for it, or how much I was longing for it. To that degree. So it was pretty magical.
That's awesome. And how was do you have any like stories that come to mind, or like, how was it? How was everyone's reaction and just meeting people and talking to them?
Unreal. And people came out of the woodwork. I mean, there were people at events that I hadn't seen since high school. I think that's the power of social media in a really lovely way. But I mean, friends of my parents that knew me when I was a really little girl. One of my best friend's daughters, who's unbeknownst to me, has become like this super fan. She calls my book. She says, this is my mom's college roommate's accomplishment. You just don't. We live in a community of artists here in Los Angeles. And so we're very used to, I think, engaging with people around things that we make and things that we do. And most people that we're friends with do something like what we do. So to be among people that don't work in this world and their excitement and their understanding of this and what it means to them was, I think, a really important moment for me to take it in and kind of like feel the bigness and the excitement.
Aw, it's almost like sometimes you have to like leave Los Angeles to realize what you're doing in Los Angeles, if that makes any sense.
absolutely the case. And every time I leave, this is another interesting point. I wonder what you think about that.
Mhm.
I often have people who are writers outside of Los Angeles. So throughout this book process, I met authors that don't live in Los Angeles. In fact, no one else that I
Mhm.
met through my publisher, Putnam Books, works and lives in Los Angeles.
Right.
And so they were kind of like, we can't imagine having to do what it takes to be an artist inside this city where everyone is so competitively doing it. And I had never thought about it that way. I thought,
Mhm.
like, well, you go where everyone's doing it,
Right.
not you go where no one's doing it so that you're not influenced by the doing. And I,
Right.
I'm of two minds. I love being here. And I've, as you know, like we found great community here. And I feel like the right people to
Mhm.
support that process. But it is an interesting way to think about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, like it is like kind of like big fish in us, the phrase with the
Yeah.
fish.
The phrase with the fish.
You're
Yeah, it
welcome.
totally feels that way. And it's funny, whenever I need to really focus on my work,
Mhm.
I do leave LA. I don't go
Mm.
far. I get in my car and go, a couple hours north, couple hours south. But like I do have this sense of I need to be outside like the basin. I don't
Yeah.
know.
This is your first book. Like, did you do that with writing this book? Did you have to leave Los Angeles to kind of get through this book?
Yeah, once kind of accidentally and once purposefully. So I
Hmm.
wrote this book during the still very tightly protected time of the pandemic.
Hmm.
And my husband and I had decided I had my very first niece born. My whole
Oh,
family is in New Jersey. And
hmm.
I really wanted to be with my family among this time. And my sister needed some care help that she felt safe with. So we lived in my parents' house for almost three
Oh,
months. And
wow.
that is when I wrote the first draft of this book.
Wow.
I wanted something that was escapist no matter what. It wasn't just about being at, my parents' house in this kind of interesting circumstance. I wanted to be away from the pandemic, like I think we
Right.
all did. So yeah, I was far from Los Angeles then. And then I've kind of found a special spot that I really like, just about 2.5 hours north of here in Los Alamos.
Okay. Hmm.
Yeah, just north of Los Olivos. It's this really charming kind of former motel turned into a little bit of a nicer motel. It's
Hmm.
called Skyview Los Alamos, and they have everything you need there. So you can get all your meals, lots of outdoor space. They do have a little pool, and that is where I went when I finished the draft. Really, when I was ready to read something that felt actually finished. So it's probably
Right.
like the second or third draft. And I read it fully and I totally concentrated. So yeah, two times. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, going back to, writing the book in New Jersey, like, have you in the back of your mind wanted to, like, tell me about like becoming a fiction writer. Have you always wanted to write a book? But did you start off in screenwriting? Tell me about your process.
Yeah. You know, I was a little girl that was always writing. I was always writing everything, though. I
Hmm.
was a huge book lover,
Hmm.
but I just think that my path, I started as a blog writer to whatever degree you can start a career as a blog writer. So then it went like blog writing. The natural path was journalism. So I was writing some articles for places like Marie Claire, as an
Hmm.
example. And then, very oddly, a friend was starting a theater company, and she felt like my blog writing had a lot of dialogue in it. So she invited me to participate in that.
Hmm.
And through that, I got this huge bug for writing for film slash screen slash stage, really writing for actors and writing for production. And so then that took me to Los Angeles from New York, which is where I
Hmm.
was living, and opened this huge, as much as I was a book lover, I was a TV and film lover. And I think that there was just like a pathway opened and I went down it and very fortunately was able to cull together enough income over the years to make that my career. But always books were my beloved. And this idea, it's been with me for now 11 years.
Wow.
Around the time that I got engaged. I'm now
Hmm.
married 10 years.
Uh-huh.
So there was something about this idea that felt like my most special thing. I don't know. And so because of that, I was holding on to it to turn it into a book.
Hmm.
And I had the hope that I would be able to find my way to that process. I have a very book loving manager,
Hmm.
Rachel Miller at Haven Entertainment. And she has always been a person that suggested that for me,
Hmm.
encouraged me in that direction. I did have the experience of doing something in the young adult space for a just digital publication about 8 years ago. So
Hmm.
I had dipped my toe in, but
Hmm.
it's really because of her encouragement that I even thought I could do it in the first place. I think books were too special for me to think it's like it made them scary because they were
Yeah.
so special.
I
But
100% get that. Yeah.
this, I just, and maybe you feel similarly, the ownership relationship between material when it's a book versus film and TV here in Los Angeles is very different.
Yeah.
And I think that with the heirloom, because it was this like precious idea that I'd had for so long, um, I wanted to own it in a more outright way. And I knew from my experience in the industry that the best path to that and owning the intellectual property was to write it as a book.
Yeah, because you are in charge of so much. The world
Yeah.
is your oyster.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And then for that reason also I decided I don't know that I would have been able to sell it off proposal, but I
Right.
didn't even consider that. I wrote the full manuscript. I think even more so because I'm just well aware of how the notes process goes and I
Hmm.
wanted to make sure that I put my first draft stamp on it. Of
Yeah.
course, it changed, but yeah, it was an interesting. Now that I think about it, I think I can't believe I haven't been pursuing the dream of books the whole time, but I do think it was bigger than I could dream up.
Yeah. I totally get that. And it's like it's honestly because we were in a show together like a few weeks ago, and you were talking about obviously this was like a saucy show, but
Yes.
but reading was a really important part of your story and your growth. And so like and even though it was like sexy, but like it just like I very much envisioned you, not that I was envisioning you, but I could see the young Jessie reading, and like it's the trajectory makes sense in my brain just knowing you. You know
Oh,
what I
that's
mean?
very sweet. Yes, we
Yeah.
should say that story, which was an amazing storytelling show, was about this obsession I had with a Cosmopolitan magazine, specifically the articles about sex. So
Hmm.
you're right. I think that books and reading was just my escape. It's how I process things. I grew up in a very lovely community with a lovely family, but a very small
Right.
community,
Hmm.
kind of a very insular place and not the big city.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was how I was figuring it out. I was going
Hmm.
to get out there.
Yeah, yeah. So it's 11 years ago you have this idea for the heirloom. How did it come? Is it based on a true story? I know probably a lot of people have asked you that.
No, it's a great question. It is based on a true superstition. So
Okay.
in my family, my mom's side is 100% Italian. That is the family I was logistically raised closest to. And so these Italian superstitions and beliefs and rules were really big for me growing up.
Hmm.
And one of them was, of course, this superstition about vintage jewelry, specifically vintage engagement rings, the idea that they hold the karma, the idea that you would never go into a jewelry store and just buy one off the shelf. If it's your beloved grandmother's grandmother, well, then go with God, but
Hmm.
you would never. And so that came up as I was dating someone that
Hmm.
I thought might be ready to propose.
Hmm.
And I was sharing this very staunch belief that I had. I had told him, I had told others, and there was nothing but debate. Some people thought I was insane. Some people thought I was rude. Some people thought they had never thought about it before and they were like, oh God, oh no. So it was so much kind of like juicy stuff that came out of that conversation. And I remember at some point, and boy, do I wish I could remember who it was that essentially said, but come on, there's got to be like a workaround. And I said, well, yeah, I guess if you could find out everyone that ever wore it,
Hmm.
like as a throwaway line. And I do remember that sticking with me very much and thinking, oh, that's fun. That would be
Yeah,
fun. And I
absolutely.
think at first I was thinking that would be fun to do
Right.
as a real woman.
Yeah.
And then I just kept thinking like, oh, I can see that. Oh, that would be fun. Oh, that would be interesting. And so it stayed with me for a really long time. But
Hmm.
I was down in a different career path for a while, so I
Right.
wasn't quite thinking about this. And B, there were some pieces of the puzzle of completing the story that I didn't have. So specifically, I
Hmm.
hadn't figured out how I was going to make sure that no matter what kind of ring you had as a reader of this book, you felt good about it,
Hmm.
which is essentially making sure that I resolve the superstition in a way that is celebratory
Hmm.
of any kind of jewelry. So I was insistent on that. And then the second thing is I just wasn't sure how it should end,
Right. Yeah.
and there's like,
Hmm.
I felt like there was an obvious ending, which is kind of like you start with a marriage proposal, you start with a ring, you end with a wedding. And I
Hmm.
knew I didn't want to do that.
Right.
And I also think it took like years of me, even as a married person,
Hmm.
deciding truly how I felt about the risk and the decision to be a married person.
Right, absolutely. Because like I feel like that's what the story becomes. Like first, it's
Yeah.
like this fun adventure, you know, where she's going to these great places, but then in the end, it becomes a journey about just discovering what her feelings currently are. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I have been saying, and I almost feel like it's important to say for anyone who's setting out to write a book, if I knew I was writing that book, I definitely wouldn't have written it. That
Mm-hmm.
was so hard. So I kind of just I got into it and I feel like I put this character on the page and I felt really connected to her. And she was me, but she was also these other two women in my life that are very special to me. And then I thought, like, I mean, I gotta give this girl her rightful journey,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and I had there were pieces of her past that I really wanted to include that were again pieces of dynamics that have been in my life and the lives of others that I wanted, and then it just felt impossible to
Mm-hmm.
give her this shallow,
Right.
simple, it's all going to wrap up in a bow. I felt like she kind of presented as this person that had the opportunity to like really tell us something, and then I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, but I have to decide what she tells us. And it was
Right.
kind of a wild process of allowing for that. And I had both my manager, who I mentioned earlier, Rachel, and
Mm-hmm.
then we ultimately, after having a manuscript that we felt was in good enough shape, I was able to find a book agent
Mm-hmm.
who really gave me permission through a wonderful set of helpful notes to take the story even deeper. I was very afraid of that. I felt like this should just be a frothy beach read, which I love.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was looking to offer that to readers, and she said that she thought it could be both. She was
Yeah.
like, I really think you can go for it. And that is ultimately the draft and the round that got a lot deeper. And that ultimately is what sold.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny you say that because, like, reading it, like, I was like, oh, you were setting out to write. It reads like you're setting out to write a book about how we as society use superstition as a way to deal with our grief, deal with our feelings, and it's just like it's wild because that's what it becomes of just like how everyone kind of views superstitions and just how we use it as a crutch. You know what I mean?
Yes, it is what it became. I mean, Becky, there was a point when I was writing the book where I was literally like, why is this bitch so superstitious? Get over it. And I was like, ooh, but I have to decide that. I
Right.
felt like I'd set up this situation and then I almost couldn't go halfway. And
Right.
it was
Right.
wild to be in that place of um, almost like recognizing what this foundation that I had built and then needing to and wanting to deliver on it.
Hmm.
So I'm so glad that some really thoughtful and permissive women stepped in to help me say, we think this is going to be okay. And we
Hmm.
think that it is safe to
Yeah.
kind of plant this flag and say these things, and that you will be able to like straddle this line between it's enjoyable and it's fun, but also like people are really going to be left with some thoughts.
Hmm.
I feel really fortunate about that.
Yeah. Because I mean, this was like I cried a lot, and I wasn't
That's so lovely.
because I
Tell
don't know.
me
There were
every
just
time you cried. No, I'm kidding.
okay, starting from when I was born. No, but just like the stuff with her mom and losing her
Yeah.
mom. I think that was not that it was unexpected, but it was just like, oh, this woman has very profound grief, and now I completely understand why
Yeah.
she would kind of be caught in kind of wanting to stick to these kinds of beliefs. You know what I mean?
Totally. And I think the hard part, this came up a lot. This is not a plug for my former storytelling show, Sunday Night Sex Talks, which is the way that we met, which was a
Hmm.
very special time in my life, and hearing lots of life stories. But I've always been taken by, and that show, I felt like I heard them over and over and over again. And you had one of them,
Hmm.
moments in people's lives where they decide or are prompted to like take off the blinders,
Hmm.
or to I'm not going to feel this way anymore. I felt
Yeah.
this way for a long time. I've let this go. I've bottled this up. I've closed down this feeling. And for whatever reason, I'm done.
Hmm.
I am going to push through whatever it takes to get better. And I'm always been really fascinated by stories that have that moment. And I think that a little bit of like marriage conversations and superstition conversations and all things aside, that was what I wanted to show,
Yeah.
is like what that looks like and how that happens. And more importantly, why it hadn't happened yet. Sometimes
Hmm.
we kind of look at adult women and say, like, oh, come on. How could she not know this? How could she not come to her senses? I've certainly judged myself that way.
Right.
Why am I not seeing this? Why can't I figure this out? And I wanted to show why that's possible. And I wanted to offer a lot of compassion to that character experience and to say, it makes a lot of sense why she didn't know this. It makes a lot of sense why she needed to go through this journey. And thank goodness she did, even though got a little hairy.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Got a little hairy.
Little hairy. I mean, to your point, I think like just like it's relatable, like not even just like if someone has their superstitions or if someone like, you know, is like clinging on to some belief that they had when you know, they were a kid or whatever, and they're growing, they still have the blinders up. But I think like beyond it, there's a really great message in that like we're all just like waiting to like live our lives until we get it right, you know, and you realize that like, oh, that's what I'm doing. That's the problem. You know, it's not, you know, whatever, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, and I think there's no shame in this. I think a lot of people just forge ahead without that check on themselves.
Yeah.
You know, if Shay was, the character's name is Shay, and if she hadn't had this superstition, I don't know, you wonder if she would have entered into a relationship and said I do and walked down the aisle before she was really ready.
Yeah.
And I think that some relationships endure that, and I think some don't.
Yeah.
And I had this realization at a certain point of writing this book. Somebody referred to what Shay was experiencing as cold feet. You know, questioning whether she should be marrying this fiance, using the ring as a way to question that. And I realized that cold feet is owned by men. This concept of cold feet is so groom oriented.
My mind is blown. Yeah, you're right.
And I think I could absolutely understand why cold feet is a scary thing, because especially in a culture where engagement to wedding is usually like what, a year? It's kind of like, oh, well, it's done. It's essentially done. Just have the party. But I really wanted to say that I think cold feet is great. And that if you have it, good on your brain for sounding an alarm.
Yeah.
And allowing you to figure out how to deal with that. And I know it's super scary. And I'm, you know, in the story that I've written and in experiences that I've had and other friends have had, there's two people involved. So there's pain that you may be inflicting on another person because of your uncertainty. All those things are so hard, but they're not happening.
Oh my God, 100%. And it's interesting because, you know, this is a romance podcast. I do read a lot of romance, and you never usually see the concept of, well, in a lot of the books, you don't see the concept of cold feet in the way that it's explored in your book, which is very real. But it is refreshing to hear you say that, because like I feel like all of these thoughts that she's having, like, and like anyone would have those thoughts, like no matter what they're doing, like whether it's a new job or a new relationship or things like that. And so yeah, like it is nice. But the thing is that what I liked about it is that cold feet can still be romantic. You know what I mean?
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. I felt that way. I felt like it was so romantic that she was dogged in her pursuit of certainty for this man.
Yeah.
And, you know, to be very honest with you, you know, you write a book, you finish it, then you reread it and you're like, oh, could I have one more pass on this? And you can't.
Right.
And one of the things that I wish I could express more deeply in the book, if I were to ever, you know, have that chance, is it's because of her love for her fiance, which was her long-term boyfriend before that, that she is so insistent on getting it right.
Yeah.
And I really felt that way before I got married. You know, I really felt like I had found this person, this man. My husband is Robbie, which is a spoiler as to what I decided. And I was like, oh, this man is worthy of a partner that is really going to understand and respect and love all that he brings to a marriage, like all that he is as a husband. And I was like, I'm not going in less than 110% for that, because that's what this human deserves.
Yeah. And that's not unlike a romance novel. You know, I mean, it's not unlike kind of the act 3 of a romance. It is a lot about like self-growth, and yours is just like focused on that, because granted, it is a love story, but it is about like a woman's self-growth.
100%. We've been calling it almost a a love story about a woman's love for herself, you know? So it's like,
Yes.
it's a
Mm-hmm.
relationship between a woman and herself. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it was very, very hard to land on an ending because of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's okay to say, as a little bit of a spoiler, that I sold the book without the epilogue.
Mm-hmm.
And for anyone that gets a chance to read it, there's a big things that get wrapped up in the epilogue.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I really struggled with making sure that after I had given this character this resolution around herself, that I was honoring what she needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't just wrapping it up with a bow, you know, that
Right.
it was kind of, there's like, I had a little bit of a feminist agenda, if you will, to make
100%.
sure that I
Mm-hmm.
was saying, A, what this character needs and deserves and what's right for her, especially after a period of time. You
Mm-hmm.
know, she makes a decision to kind of pursue even more growth. And then I wanted to make sure that that didn't happen overnight, because it doesn't.
Right. Yeah.
And then the other thing I wanted to make sure is, and this is just something that's important to me as a woman in the world, that I wasn't saying I feel that all women should be married,
Right.
that all humans
Yeah.
should be married, that all couples should be married. I really wanted that to be something that felt, you know, no matter where you were in your relationship with the concept of marriage as a reader,
Mm-hmm.
that you would feel like a character decision was made and an agenda was not pushed by the author,
Right. Yeah.
which is like another
Mm-hmm.
kind of funky thing. Like it's a line to kind of walk.
Right. Did you feel pressure to go one way or another? Like not like not through notes or like what were the pressures that you were feeling in terms of like not wrapping her story up because that's not what you did, but in terms of like because I like because like I don't know, like the epilogue I loved, but you know, you do see a finality to her story before
Yeah.
the epilogue. You know what I mean? Of
Yeah.
like the core story of this book, you
That's
know?
right. I think that before the epilogue, you know that she's going to be fine no matter what.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then you read the epilogue, and I think, well, one of the things that I actually really did want to resolve, and one of the things that I spoke about with my editor, who is the amazing Kate Dresser at Putnam Books, who just like, oh my God, in the arms of an angel was what I was with this book with her. She felt like it was important to give the ring resolution.
Yeah.
You know, we
Yeah.
start with this
Mhm.
ring. What happens to the
Mhm.
ring? You know, what is the
Mhm.
story of the ring? So that was something I really wanted to make sure that I offered. And there
Yeah.
were a lot of different ideas for that
Mhm.
were, you know, close to the one that we landed on, far from the one that we landed on. So that was a piece of the puzzle. I think it's really hard not to have certain readers in mind.
Yeah.
My very beloved cousin, to whom I dedicated the book, was with me on this whole writing process, and she's a person who's not married, though partnered long term.
Mhm.
And her life was a big factor in what I wanted to put on the page,
Mhm.
as well as, you know, my own husband.
Right.
Right. Like I was
Yeah.
thinking about people. And I think that is a lovely thing to consider as you're writing. But then I
Mhm.
think at the end of the day, you do have to let all those readers go and just say, okay, it's time to plant a flag and what makes me feel good. And then we get hopefully to write more books.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about kind of the organizational aspect of writing because it felt like the way like I really loved how you ended each chapter on a cliffhanger. I loved how you brought in dreams and just in using like flashbacks as a way to kind of move the story along. And I guess I'm curious like did you plan on doing that going in? Like, how did you out, like, tell me about your outline process, I guess is my question.
Yes. So this book was written as a NaNoWriMo challenge, which is
Okay.
National Novel Writing Month. It's this really interesting kind of online, completely free service to get people ready for the challenge of writing a book. And it prompts you to write 50,000 words in a month, which is about 200 pages. A traditional novel, you know, a women's fiction novel is more like 80,000 words. This is all to say, I had about 50 pages, and then I decided I was going to finish it or try to finish it during NaNoWriMo. This is when I was home in New Jersey during the pandemic.
Hmm.
NaNoWriMo offers through the month of October, the month prior to the November challenge, all these really cool outlining resources.
Oh, cool.
And so I just used them all. I
Oh,
just
that's
kind of was like
awesome.
playing with them all. And I don't know if they had an Excel sheet. Maybe they did, or maybe I saw some other writer in some other format have this Excel sheet that was kind of chapter by chapter. And then it was like a main point of the chapter, chapter description, and then it had these other columns that you could play with that were like main character journey tracker, all these sorts of things. And I used that as a way. I went in with something pretty loose. And then structurally, I kind of had like your Save the Cat film style beat sheet ready to go. And then I just kind of let it flow. And yeah, I would say that some of the things were intentional only in that dreams, for example. I'm a huge vivid dreamer.
Me too.
Dreams have always been a huge part of the way that I process things.
Yep.
And so I just thought like, well, a lot of it was, what would I do?
Right. Yeah.
You know, here I am, I'm backed against a corner. What would I do? You know? And so that was a helpful way as a really like baby novelist to figure this out. And then I think that the cliffhangers were just a little bit of a kind of like propulsive impulse.
Yeah.
I like page turners. I like plot. I think a little bit of that comes from having been schooled in the TV spirit of there needs to be a cliffhanger before a commercial break.
Right.
So some of that was coming from all of those lessons I had from that phase of my life. But let me be clear. That first draft was very bad. It had to be completely rewritten. I didn't know what I was doing.
Well,
and so
tell me what completely rewritten. Like, what is, like, I just, as a writer myself, not that, but like, just out of curiosity, like, what does completely rewritten mean? Because you know what I mean? Like,
I think that there are probably, let's imagine there are 1,000 paragraphs in the book, The Heirloom, just to do some easy math.
Yeah.
I think 100 remain from the original.
Okay.
That's
so
how much.
See, to me, I'm like, okay, 1%. Like, not completely rewritten. There's still some, like, you know, kind of moments.
And I think some of that is like plot structure.
Right.
You know, the general structure, like this happens, she goes out, she's on this mission, she comes back. That stayed consistent, but so much else changed.
Right.
And so much else then had to change for me to learn how to structure, learn how to organize and prepare to rewrite. That took more decisive structural grids and note cards and coloring things and figuring out how to track things than anything else. Because now I'm making changes to this house of cards.
Yes.
And everything is starting to switch around. So it became really important. I was color coding things so that I could see where characters showed up, to be like, oh my God, well, we haven't seen this color in 12 chapters.
Yeah.
Where's John?
Right.
So those kinds of things, as well as, I built a column that was like cliffhangers. So I knew the cliffhanger in every chapter, so it wasn't feeling overdone.
Right.
I built a column that was like Shay John relationship tracker. And then any chapter that included that was described so that I could see the relationships. I think a lot of this comes from just being a very visual learner.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it also comes from, this is the largest amount of material I've ever had to contain in my brain.
Yes. Yeah.
So I found myself obsessively looking at the grid, entering things in the grid, turning the grid into note cards, looking at the note cards, rewriting note cards just for the sake of feeling myself rewrite them, because I think I was just trying to memorize the whole story.
Do you think you were doing that? Because like the way you're making it sounds like, oh, like in a TV writing room, or when you're working on a screenplay or something, you have a team of people, you know, there's the showrunner. Like it was almost like you needed that as a show, like, because the showrunner, you didn't have, it was you. So
yeah, I needed a showrunner. I needed an assistant. I needed a room PA. Yeah, it's very true. I also think that it's a weird, because of the size of a novel, you know, coming up with solutions for problems ends up touching so much. So if you make a decision that you're going to, here's a really good example. So there was a therapist character throughout the entire book in a very early draft. And she was like giving my main character a lot of the answers. And I didn't want that. I wanted my main character to discover the answers herself. Also, she wasn't physically on the journey. So it was like a lot of phone calls. It just like wasn't working. Okay. So when I lifted the therapist out, all of the things that the therapist was accomplishing or helping my character accomplish had to get replaced.
Right.
In plot, in conversation, in dream, in something. So like, oh my God, even now thinking about how I was able to like remember all those places, organize those places, and contain it in my head became like a process of essentially memorizing the book.
Yeah, because you are essentially telling two stories. You know, you have the story of the ring and then the story of Shay. And so, yeah, it's a lot. It feels like it's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that again. No, I'm kidding. Meanwhile, I mean, we may get to it, but I am in the process of writing something else, and
Oh,
it's
exciting.
multiple stories again. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
I
Yeah.
think I like that though. I just like
Yeah.
I like a busy story, and I
Hmm.
also can get just as immersed in a book that is smaller in scope and really character focused. Okay, like Sally Rooney,
Hmm.
normal people comes to
Yeah.
mind in
Hmm.
terms of like we're with them and they're just kind of talking. Like the film version is like before midnight, before sunset, right? That
Hmm.
series.
Hmm.
But I think at the end of the day, as a writer, I like it busy and a lot of action and plot. And then I really like for it to like all weave together.
Hmm.
Um, which you can like something and not have the skill to do it right away.
No, because it is that is very present in the book because, like, I was like, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was about like the locations that she goes to, and I'm like, can I design a vacation around this? Like, do like
Listen to
an
this.
heirloom tour.
I was approached by, I know there's a company out there that it's called like, I can't remember. Oh my gosh, forgive me, company. It's like Vacation Book Club.
Hmm.
And they pick a book that travels, and
Yeah.
then you go with the book to the places.
That is genius. I mean,
I
because that's
know.
literally what I thought.
I
Because, like,
know.
I always wanted to do an Outlander tour, like but this,
Mm,
yours is multiple countries.
trickier.
It's but still worth it. And I'm like
Yeah,
in my head, like, I need to
I
hire
know.
someone. That's amazing. That's such
I
a good
know.
idea.
It's a great idea. So I think
Oh,
that for me, these were places that I wished I could go during the pandemic.
okay.
And they
Mm-hmm.
were also places that I could reach for visually for
Mm-hmm.
descriptive purposes that were like very deep and amazing travel experiences for me. So I was able to study abroad in Italy. That
Mm-hmm.
was, such a first choice. My heritage being Italian was also like a piece of that puzzle.
Yeah.
And I had gone on this, despite it being with my dear female friend, this like really romantic trip to Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
And we
Mm-hmm.
traveled down the West Coast. And it was this amazing road trip. And it just felt like there was something that felt very sexy about that trip. And I
Yeah.
always, there's a reason that that needed to happen when that was happening in the book,
Sure.
as my
Mm-hmm.
character's feelings are happening. So it's kind of why I picked the places. And then there's Boston and New York included because those are beloved places to me. I keep
Mm-hmm.
saying I don't think I could ever write a book that doesn't at least make one stop in New York just because I love New
It
York.
needed to. I was excited about Boston because she actually like visits like right near where my good friend lived near
Ah,
Near Zaftig's Delicatessen.
me, me too. Yeah. And the Boston stop was just, yeah, I wanted there to also be stakes.
Yeah.
She is on the road perhaps longer than she should be.
Yes.
And,
Mm-hmm.
the growing obsession that she has with this ring, that she will do anything now to finalize this. I felt connected to that. And I also felt like it was getting a little dangerous,
Yeah.
jeopardizing her own relationship. Her relationship with her sister comes into play there, and that becomes really challenging. So, a little bit of the decision to keep her jumping from place to place was for that too, to kind of say, like, enough is enough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it just like, cause like there were times where I'm like, oh no, like I'm like, when is she gonna go home? When is she
Yeah.
gonna go home? Like,
Is if ever.
if
Someone
ever.
said they didn't think she
Yeah.
was ever going to go home. Yeah.
Cause like those kinds of things stress me out, of like every time I leave the house, I'm like, how am I getting home? Not like that, but maybe sometimes depending on what I smoke. But like,
Yeah.
there is like this level of like, just like
Yeah.
maybe as a person who's like always concerned about logistics and stuff, I'm like, well, what if she runs out of underwear? Like,
Well, not only that, but I was asking her to like make this big financial play here.
right?
So
Yeah,
those were hard things to resolve, right? Like
yeah,
she's done this
yeah.
thing. She's about to like enter into a financial situation where she's, pairing her finances with someone. Is this a nice thing to do before? Shouldn't she
Mm-hmm.
be saving for a wedding? Like
Right.
all
Yeah.
these questions definitely came up. And, in earlier drafts of the book, something that I've always struggled with, and I know I'll continue to, is it's very hard for me to make my characters messy. It's like hard for me
Mm,
to put them in situations where I'm just like, girl,
yeah.
don't do that.
Yeah.
And that's like a bit of an internal monologue I have with myself, which is like, don't do that thing. Don't take that risk. Don't spend that money. Don't go that far. And
Yeah.
so it was really fun to allow her to get as messy as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then to, of course, put the pieces back together. But
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that that is something that I was anxious writing it. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, let's shave off a couple
Yeah. Because
days.
it's like you do have to, like you said, raise the stakes and just like make your characters do something. Especially, I'm imagining that Shay is close to you as a person. There's a lot of
Totally.
you in her character. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
totally. Especially the like everything being rational. Everything's
Yeah.
rationalized. I must. It's one more
Mm-hmm.
thing. Portugal's not that far from Italy. You know, all
Yeah.
these things that just like, I've come this far. How could I not finish it? So she applies her logic to whatever she decides is logical, but she's still
Mm-hmm.
like, everything is justified.
Yeah.
And that is very close to me. You know, I can
Right.
talk myself into things that perhaps are not that wise, but it's always very logical in my mind.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Like, and then my other question for you is like, how did you like kind of piece together? Because there's like three or two other love stories connected with this ring. And they're very,
Yeah.
very interesting with very, very interesting characters. And so you have like you have Shay's story, and then you have to like write these other stories. And I'm just like so curious as to like where those ideas came from and how much of you or anyone you know is in those like side stories.
Yeah. So the first story, which we won't give away what happens, but I will say that the first story was the one that I absolutely knew I would include because it is based on one of my own love stories.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And so I just wanted to honor that always. I
Mm-hmm.
also needed to, and I think this is a fine mini spoiler, I needed to find a way for the first history of the ring to make the ring safe, but
Yeah.
still be very complicated,
Sure. Sure.
you know, to
Mm-hmm.
kind of like be ominous and troubling. And then you find out, like, oh, well, it didn't quote unquote work out, but actually, that's still really beautiful.
Yeah.
So that was, I had to do that kind of for plot
Mm-hmm.
and for like ring trajectory.
Right. Yeah.
And then the second one kind of just like came together in a very odd way, I think, because of like the speed of writing a book in a month. And I was like, oh, that's fun. We're
Mm-hmm.
going with it.
Mm-hmm.
But the spirit of the second Rings story had to be edited to meet my character where she was in her journey.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the lesson of that ring had to hit my character in a moment of learning about that.
Mm-hmm.
The woman, I'm going to be very clear and distinct about this. I'm obsessed with the movie Great Expectations, and
Okay.
specifically with the beautiful like green room that Anne Bancroft is in that
Mm-hmm.
modern version of it. And
Mm-hmm.
I pictured that woman. And so I like wrote that woman, and
That's
then
fun.
the story had to match this thing. And that was really hard. Like, okay, where are we? What exactly does she need to say? How does it need to throw Shay? How can I
Mm-hmm.
represent a different belief system around
Yeah.
superstition?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the third ring story, I really needed it to connect to Shay's home.
Okay.
I was
Yeah.
like, it's time to go home. It's
Mm-hmm.
time for this to trigger the big scary,
Yeah.
like the big
Yeah.
bad, the big heart thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know, that was the hardest one. That was the one that kind of came last. And I think the other thing, just from like a writer to writer standpoint, is it needed to also feel a little faster. You know, we
Right.
can't, there is a little bit of fatigue in terms of just like the structure of getting that third story in there. So in
Mm-hmm.
terms of that and like how I told that portion of it, and like, okay, well, that person's a lot older. How do we meet that person? Like, what does that look like was a thing too. But
Mm-hmm.
the first was fine and in. The
Mm-hmm.
second was some work. The third was a bitch. And then we figured it out, but
Yeah.
that was like the fourth or fifth draft, all the way through the manuscript.
Yeah. It feels like the characters do a lot of research in the book. And did you do a lot of research to write the book?
Yeah, I mean, yes. And I also kind of went with things that I already had a base of curiosity or research on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, except for, I don't know. I just thought it would be romantic to have a character that was like, touched the world of opera. I've
Yes.
always thought that would be
Yeah.
so romantic, and
Mm-hmm.
and one of the characters does, and just like the places and spaces of opera, especially in Europe, which is where they are. I
Mm-hmm.
do not know a single thing about the opera world, so I was like, oh damn it, this is a mess. I've made a mess,
Yeah.
and having to do that research did take me a little bit of time, but
Right.
I think it was fun ultimately. And I tried not to go so deep that it felt inaccessible to people.
Yeah. 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 So the character of Shay, like, works in film. She works for film, like film festival. And she mentions like Nora Ephron in it. And I guess maybe I saw a lot of like Nora Ephron isms.
Oh, Becky, from your mouth to the lips of Nora in heaven. Yes,
Mhm.
that's right. I feel like that's what I was raised on.
Yeah.
I just was
Hmm.
like, I think that the Nora of everything I ever do is like that little bit of like, oh, well, that was convenient but cute.
Yes.
Like
Yes. Yes. Yes.
that kind of
Yes.
like wink and nod and a little bit of magic and then,
Hmm.
and those sorts of things. But I think the other thing about Nora Ephron stuff that I always really respected is do feel like she asks this huge, very universal question.
Hmm.
So it's like when Harry met Sally, can men and women be friends?
Yeah.
And then like even like you've got mail, like what happens when you fall in love with your enemy?
Hmm.
And like
Hmm.
Sleepless in Seattle, can you fall in love with someone you've never met?
Hmm.
Like all these really interesting big universal questions, and then she gives us this fun story along the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do feel like I'm just always reaching for that tone and
Well, you
the
did it. You did it. Because the whole time
thanks.
I'm just like, can she wear this ring? That's what you're thinking of, like, can she put this ring on her finger?
Yeah.
And that's the big question.
Yeah, can she and like should she and what does it
Yeah.
mean? I felt
Mm-hmm.
like that was a big thing too is you know, it's also such a strange situation, similarly. I think this has changed a lot, and I love this for people
Mm-hmm.
that now many people are involved in the choice of what they will wear as a signifier of their engagement,
Right.
no
Mm-hmm.
matter what kind of couple it may be.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm seeing people do things like watches instead of rings,
Mm-hmm.
people choosing the ring and going shopping for the ring together, like those kinds of things, because it's also like, well, wait a minute, why should she accept this thing?
Right.
Just because
Yeah.
it's handed to her,
Mm-hmm.
just because it's
Mm-hmm.
what we've always done. So I felt like that was
Yeah.
another thing that I wanted to get to say.
Yeah. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was such a fun, great read.
Thank
And
you.
I'm excited that you're writing another book. That's very exciting.
Yeah, so this was very, very fortunately sold as a two-book deal. And
Yay.
the even cooler piece of that is that I wasn't required to write a sequel. And
Okay.
so we've
Mm-hmm.
decided to keep, we're calling them spiritual sisters, in
Love
that
it.
this
Yeah.
second book is also about a huge belief system, this time
Mm-hmm.
astrology.
Big, big.
It's
Yeah.
also about a character that is going to go on a journey to solve something and uncover something.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, unlike Shay, who is a believer that needs to be grounded in reality,
Mm-hmm.
this character is a total skeptic that
Okay.
is out to disprove astrology,
Mm-hmm.
but ultimately, I think really needs to believe a little bit that there
Yeah.
may be something to the idea of fate and destiny, that it may be written in the stars. Once again, I'm not looking to prove anything,
Mm-hmm.
just like I don't think that we landed on whether or not superstition is real. I don't think you possibly could, but
Right.
it's been a lot of fun to like get mired in this whole like system of thoughts and beliefs and why is this the belief, and then really ultimately put her on a whirlwind round the world journey again.
Absolutely. I mean, that's so fun, and like, because I think astrology. I don't know if it's just an LA thing or if it's a universal thing, but it feels like it's. There are people who will talk to you about astrology like we all believe in it. It's so common. So
Yes.
common.
And the thing I love about astrology even more is people who adamantly don't believe in it can tell you their sign immediately.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's something that we all like have this access to and this knowledge of, but I don't know how many people are really like thinking about the details of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's been really fun about this. So
Yeah.
if we get the chance to talk again when that book comes out,
Oh,
it
of
has been
course.
endless research. So
So you can
very
tell everyone's
much,
fortune now, and
so much research, which is good. So yeah, I'm in the process right now. As we record this, I have 10 more days until the first draft is due.
oh, that's so fun. I am so excited for you, Jessie. Like, this is
Thank
really
you.
like, I mean, I'm so happy for you. And the
Thank you.
book's so
Thank you.
good.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's just, this readers are the best people.
Mm, hmm.
Sorry, people that watch TV and movies.
Yeah.
I just think that readers are the best. And I just can't believe, I don't think having not been as in depth in this community, readers are why this book is gaining any kind of recognition at all. Of course, there's an amazing marketing team at the publisher, but people like you that have podcasts, bookstagrammers, book talkers, people just really sink their teeth in because I think readers have such love and support for books. And that kind of reception and piece of this puzzle is unbelievable. I've loved it.
That's so great. I'm so excited. That's like, oh, that makes me feel so good. And just like, you know, if there's anyone who wants to write a book, is thinking about writing a book, it just like, you know, seems like it just feels like you would fall into a community no matter what, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It can't not change your life.
Yeah.
That's like if I could, oh my God, if I could like dream of dreams ever write my version of like Bird by Bird, it would be about how like the fastest way to change your life is to write a book.
It's true. Yeah. You hear that, everyone?
You hear it?
Book. Yeah.
TM, 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 TM. Copyright right now.
Well, Jessie, thank you so much for coming on the show. Just congratulations again. And it's so fun to talk to you.
Oh, it's the best to talk to you. Thank you so much for having me. Maybe we'll do it again next year.
For links to Jessie's website and to purchase the heirloom, you can check out the show notes or visit the episode page at tstlpodcast.com. If you like the show, feel free to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. And if you don't like the show, why'd you listen this far? Too Stupid to Live is part of the Frolic Podcast Network and Culture Media. Thank you so much for listening and have a great rest of your day.